had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So then I'm doing IT, and when I go to plug the servers in, they become sentient, and they won't let us access our network unless we forward their chain emails and memes to more and more and more people, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant finds and invites best fit candidates to apply, so you can discover talent you may have missed. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Año Nuevo. Los mismos Extra Value Meals en McDonald's. Ahora te puedes llevar 2 snack wraps y papitas y una bebida mediana por solo $8. Solo por tiempo limitado. Precios y participación pueden variar. Los precios pueden ser más altos en Hawaii, Alaska y California y con entrega.
Welcome along to Muchie and Deno. Robbie and Andy are with me and our special guest Neil Masters. A big thanks to WCR-FM and in particular Steve and Sue who are looking after us with these recordings. If you want to get in touch with the show, then you can follow us via Instagram, Facebook. You can email us, which is muchieanddeno@outlook.com. So do please get in touch. Deno, you're responsible for bringing your mate Neil here
no, you can't
today.
blame me now, Johnny.
So
Come on, don't blame me.
We're about, are we 9 or 10 episodes in? We've got our first special guest. So how did this happen?
Well, do you know what? I think probably over the last 30 years we've probably messaged each other about 3 or 4 times, haven't we, over that period of time? Because you tend to drift away from people whenever they go to different parts of the world. And obviously Neil moved to Norway. So there wasn't much contact, and then got a message about a week or so ago, or a couple of weeks ago maybe, from Neil just to say he was coming across, staying in Liverpool for a little bit, wanted to come down to see the game. And whenever you get a message like that, you respond to him, like, because we haven't seen each other for such a long time, and you get back into that little bubble again. But once you do see people, even though it's 20 years, 30 years, whatever it is, you pick up on them right away. And he's a fantastic lad. We don't see enough of each other, really. That's the issue, isn't it, really? But he's got a story to tell, you know what I mean? And he's already told me bits of it. And it actually surprises you what goes on, and what you don't know about people, and what you don't know actually happened when they're at the club and stuff like that. So I'm sure he'll touch on those subjects. But he's a great lad, and he's obviously a fellow Northern Ireland lad as well. So I'm here to translate as well, Johnny, by the way, just in case. But he's
thanks, mate. I'll pay you later.
Yeah, no, he's such a good lad, and it's just nice to have him here, you know, beside us and talking about his Wolves career.
We touched on that career a very little bit in the last episode, just when we talked about your debut, a game I remember well, watching it among thousands of Wolves fans in the away end at Tranmere Rovers. I think, was it £250,000 you signed for the club for? What was the fee? Can you remember?
I think the fee was up to $750.
$750?
Yeah,
wow.
Up to $750, and obviously Bournemouth needed the money at the time.
Yeah.
Instead of going into liquidation. So, but I also felt in my career it was the right time to take the step up, and Wolves was the club for me.
So this was Christmas, New Year time, 93-94 season, was it?
Yeah.
You came here and you made that debut at Tranmere Rovers, a really impressive debut. You set up Bully for the equaliser, as we mentioned, and there were great scenes of celebration. And I think the Wolves fans took to you straight away. So, it's, just tell us what happened there on after that.
I think obviously the Tranmere game was a great start for me. I think obviously disappointed not to win the game. I think it was 1 each at the end. But setting up Bully and just I think the fans appreciated what they saw. I was happy with my performance. First game, a bit nervous, but really looking forward to it. And then the biggest difference for me was after the game. Normally at Bournemouth, when you finish the game, you've got one journalist outside the door. And then obviously finished the Tranmere game and said, "Oh, Neil, can you come and do a bit on the radio?" And I said, "Yeah, of course, no problem." And next thing I walked in, there's like 9 journalists and stuff, and I'm thinking, this is a different world. I said, "Yeah, I can have a bit of this." I thought, yeah, why not? Obviously from the debut and stuff, all the boys were great, especially Robbie and stuff made me feel so welcome at the club right from the start. Fellow Irishman. I think we used to my first day of training, I remember it well. We what was it, beans and toast in a little hut from a lovely couple, and then we had all the boys were having mugs of tea, and then we're going out in the Parks pitch, and I'm thinking, this is Wolverhampton Wanderers. I was like, what's happening? But for me, I don't mind where I play. I'll play on any patch of grass. But obviously the start was excellent, and then some niggly injuries start getting involved, and I think it was a bit frustrating more than anything, the little period of time after that before I came back again.
There must be nothing worse than injuries. I mean, I'm just speaking from the perspective as a fan, because fans get frustrated when they see players that they like the look of, players that can add to the team who are missing. We're recording this after the Newcastle Wolves game, and it was a source of huge frustration for Eddie Howe that he had players that he couldn't call on yesterday. I know that from speaking to him. But from a playing perspective, when you know you've got the ability, you know you've got the talent, and you know what you can deliver, how upsetting is it when injuries get in the way?
Oh, it's a good question. I think it's affected basically everything in my life for 30 years. I think the worst thing about being a footballer is not you don't feel involved, you don't feel useful when you're injured. You're looking from the stand. You're trying to be positive with the boys, give them all the positivity you can give them to win the game, and you want them to win the game. But at the same time, you don't feel a part of it. You're in the morning, you're in the gym 3 times a day, you're getting your treatment and stuff, and you're thinking, okay, when am I'm down to get back on the pitch again, and it does mentally, it drains you a little bit. It does. And especially when you don't have that network to talk to as well. And I think from the earliest injuries I got at Wolves, it was just a roll-on effect that built up into something huge, which we'll probably touch on, and that's the mental health side of things. But it was hugely frustrating. Before I joined Wolverhampton Wanderers, obviously I played for Bournemouth. I played, I think it was 30-odd games in a row and stuff, and I was flying. I was loving my football. I couldn't wait for the next game. I didn't feel any pressure. Coming to Wolves, I love it. Okay, let me show them what I can do. Because my goals was to get Wolves back up in the Premiership. That was number one. Put in good performances, get on the fan side, and then obviously try and get an international career on top, because I knew with my left peg I could do something special, and I had no fear. But it really kicked me in the teeth the first couple of injuries, because I wasn't expecting it. And obviously back in them days, it's like you say, I think the physio's done the best they could in the early stages. I think they were very supportive on the manager, but it was hugely frustrating just to sit and watch.
Yeah, I think for any player, injuries is the worst thing of the lot, really. And I was lucky through my career, really. I hardly picked up any injuries at all, and I'm sure the fans wish they probably did it at different times, you know what I mean? But it was just frustration, really. And some people, and Nelly picked up a few more injuries than other people, and it's just one of those things. I think sometimes it's just your makeup, maybe, you know what I mean? And you end up getting niggly little bits and just getting more injuries than certain people. But it's frustrating. I wasn't out for long periods of time, but I maybe missed 2 or 3 weeks every now and again with different things, and it's a frustrating time. And you just, as Neil says, you don't feel a part of it. You're not training with the lads. You're not playing with the lads. You're just on your own a little bit, and it's a frustrating time.
Bang on there, Robbie. You touched on it's like isolation, isn't it, really? Because you're amongst a group of about 20, 25 lads all having the banter training every day, preparing for games, so you're sort of all together. You suddenly get injured, you're in another part of the training ground. The support probably then was very poor to what it is today, you know what I mean? Because you have one-to-ones today, different trainers doing different things, so that you've got personal communication going on, but you just left really to your own devices, weren't you? And then if you were really seriously injured, then they'd send you off to Lilleshall and you'd go there rehabbing, and it's the isolation. So I can understand exactly, Neil. I can relate to what you're saying. Like Robbie, I was reasonably lucky where I was mainly fit most of my career. I had a back injury where I was out for about 3 months, 4 months, where I should have been out for 6 months. But the gaffer goes, I'm putting you on the bench tomorrow. And I went, you're joking, aren't you? He went, yeah, on the bench. Got to get you back in, he said. I said, I couldn't even walk hardly.
Well, I had a hernia around Mark McGee's time. And you want to play, don't you? The gaffer comes, Mark McGee came to me, had the hernia done, and it's supposed to be at least 6 weeks before you even start training and all that sort of stuff. And 4.5 weeks, I'm playing at Villa Park in the Cup. Because the new gaffer had come in, Mark McGee. First game I was involved in when I was training, and he says to me, well, how are you feeling? Are you okay for the game? And I'm not going to say no, I'm right. So 4.5 weeks I wanted to play. And was I fit? No, I wasn't fit. But you feel that little bit of pressure just to play. And I think that's a lot of it came from that at that time, Neil, didn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously for myself, it's kind of, when I look back, it's one moment in time, and it was life-changing. A life-changing moment. It still lives with me now. It's still a battle for me now every single day.
You told me about it was the West Brom game when you felt a bit of a
straight
after that.
Yeah, we played the Baggies here, and I thought I had probably one of my best games for Wolves on the day.
Which season was that in? Was that your first season or later on?
I was later on. Graham Taylor.
Okay, yeah.
So I absolutely enjoyed the game. The atmosphere was magnificent. We deserved to win. We drew one each. And Neil Emblem scored that day. Great fella. I really enjoyed the game, Johnny. I felt like I'm back. I'm ready to go. And so obviously finished the game. The day after, phoned my dad, just a quick call and stuff. And I just felt a wee twinge behind my knee. And I thought, I'm just stiff and sore from the game and stuff. That's fine. And then the next day, it was just catching me a little bit. So I went in, Went into the treatment room and the physio's room. Andy Thompson was in there. I think Andy didn't want to be in there. To be honest, he'll tell you the story himself. He told me it yesterday, and I was to be fair, I was laughing a little bit as well. But Graham Taylor came running in, and the abuse started, and that was a start, and that still hangs with me a little bit as well because it shouldn't have happened. Basically, Graham Taylor. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on this podcast.
You are, mate. Yeah, go ahead, mate.
Right, so I'm lying on the couch, getting a bit of treatment. Obviously, just getting ready to get out in the training pitch again. And Tom was stuck in the corner, and Graham Taylor's came running, and he's like, "Neil, you get off that fucking bench, you fat bastard!" And I'm thinking, I'm looking quite good at the moment. I've got a bit of a six pack. It's probably the fittest I've ever been in my career, and I'm lying there thinking, what's he talking about here? I said, I'm just going to get a bit of treatment, get back on the training pitch. And then he went into one again. He says, "You're always fucking injured." And Tomo, I must admit, I looked around and see Tomo in the corner. His head was down. The wee man didn't know where to do. He couldn't move. So Graham Taylor's walked out, and then he's walked back in again. He's gone again. And I'm thinking, my God, I'm getting smashed here. And I thought I played quite well at the weekend. So I said to the gaffer, "Did I not play well?" He says, "Yeah, but get off that fucking bench." So that gives you motivation even more to get out there and show him wrong. But there was a problem with my knee. It was something catching at the back, so I went out and trained, felt it again, and then I said, and then the physios were right, and we'll get a scan just to make sure. So they found a little in the cartilage. There was a little tear that had to be fixed. That was catching my knee. Said it was going to be 3 weeks, and back in action again. So I'm thinking, okay, 3 weeks, just get my head down, train hard, be good on and off the pitch, and then I'm back in the side again. So then obviously the following week we're all sat having lunch, and Graham Taylor came in with an envelope. It was one of the proudest days of my life, Johnny, to be honest, and that was when I got my call up for Northern Ireland. Brian Hamilton was the manager. He phoned me. I think it was after the West Brom game, saying, "Look, we're going to bring you in and you're going to make your debut. You're going to play against Portugal and you'll probably be man marking Figo." So I thought, thanks very much. I was like, "Who? What are you talking about?" But in them days, Johnny, it didn't bother me. The better player, the better stadium, the better crowd. I loved it. Bring it on. But it was like Figo. I was like, all right, thanks a lot. Well, I mean, I couldn't have got Moldova away or something out there just to start off with. But that was a proud moment. And he gave me a letter in front of all the boys. The boys gave me a round of applause and stuff. And it was a magical moment, to be honest with you. And I phoned my dad, and he's very quiet on the phone. So I think he shed a tear that day. And then, obviously, the knee was causing me a bit of trouble. Went in, had the cartilage a little bit fixed there. It was fine. And then the surgeon said to me, he said, "Neil, you're not lifting any heavy weights. You can do some walking, just gradually build it up over the next 3 weeks." Day 2, day 3, physio. It's got me lifting 50 kilograms of weights 2 minutes later. Not throwing anybody under the bus, but I just feel it's time to tell my story because I've had to live with it for 30 years. And it's been a very dark time at moments for me. And this has had away at me, and this has been one of the problems that I haven't been able to come back. Thank the fans. Tell them how proud I was to wear the shirt and be a part of this club. And the way things ended, it was like, it's just out of way at me, to be honest. On the mental health side of things and physical side, relationship side, it's been tough. My knee blew up straight away, Johnny. And I sat on the weights machine. I was in tears. I was like, what's going on? Why are you making me do this? Why am I doing this? And then I felt my knee just absolutely exploded. I didn't have a clue what was happening. Straight to the hospital. Next thing you out, from 3 weeks, I'm out 3 months. I've torn my patella tendon. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm distraught, Johnny. I don't know what's happening. So I've gone from the high of the West Brom game, getting called up to Northern Ireland, and then I'm facing this. And to be honest with you, Johnny, when I had the operation, they removed a third of my patella tendon. Wow. And the thing is, I'm quite a big guy. I'm big boned. I'm strong. That's my game. Power. And I felt, as soon as I had that operation, I felt my knee's not good. It felt okay. So I built myself up again after the operation. And then in 3 months' time, I think it was Mark McGee took over. So I had a couple of good chats with him. He was fine. He was looking forward to see me play. And I was just knocking on the door to start training again. So it was my first training session back.
So you hadn't played for Northern Ireland by this stage?
No.
You never got
No,
on
I had 3 months out, Johnny. I couldn't. I had to phone up Brian Hamilton. That was the hardest thing ever. And then, but I was afraid, Johnny, because when I did call him up and after the operation with my knee, I felt like to myself, do you know what? This is going to be hard to get back into the setup again. I don't know if my knee's going to be all right. But I remain positive, work hard, get my head down. 3 months, I got to be back out there again. So then the first session under Mark McGee, we'd signed players like John DeWolf and stuff like that there. Wolfie was a great character. And yeah, we had the first training for Mark McGee. I'd done the first full training session. Maybe I shouldn't have done the full training session, but I did. I thought I'd done well. Last 10 minutes, started getting tired, and then we got on the bus, travelling back to Molineux. Sat beside Wolfie and Bully, and we're on our way back, and I felt my knee getting tighter and tighter, and pain. And then just about to get off the bus, and Wolfie sat across me, and he goes, "You all right?" I had my head in my hands. I was in tears. Didn't want to show the boys, so I was just hiding my head, waiting for everybody to get off. The main reason I was fucking waiting for everybody to get off is because I couldn't move. I couldn't move my knee. And I said to Wolfie, "I can't move, mate." And he says, "What, are you all right?" And I said, "No." I said, my knee, and I looked down at my knee. It was a bit swollen again. I just thought I couldn't move, so Wolfie's helped me up, got me off the bus, walked straight into the physio's room and said, "Fucking look at this." I said, "Fucking look at this. This is my knee. This is my career. I'm done." And the physios were shocked, white-faced, didn't say much. And a week later, back in the hospital, and they removed another third of my patella tendon. And then I knew then that this is going to be a struggle. This is my career going downhill. It's hard, Johnny. It's the first time I've really spoke about it.
Absolutely.
But I think it's a message that I want to get out to the youngsters, to the people, to young players, that obviously if I can help one person, maybe 1,000 I hope, or as many as possible.
We should point out as well, obviously the people involved aren't here to defend themselves in terms of the treatment you were given, be that the managers, the physios. And we're talking 30 years ago, and there certainly aren't the advancements in science that there are now that could have identified it, whether it was a misdiagnosis or whether or not it was the wrong treatment. And I know I've spoken to players like Jolyon Lescott, who's also had a difficult time because he's been misdiagnosed before, and the treatment wasn't given to him that he needed, and it took a lot longer for him. He did get back eventually. Are you grudging of the fact that you were treated like this?
Yes, you can misdiagnose and certain scenarios and all that sort of stuff. But whenever you get your rehabilitation, whenever you're going into doing the rehab and stuff, I think that's where Neil was given the wrong information, really. That's looking at it from the outside and looking back, because he's doing stuff that he shouldn't have been doing, straight after an operation, really. So really in defence of well, listen, I'm not talking about anybody or blaming anybody. I'm just saying if it had been treated better, it would be treated better now, obviously with the modern techniques and all now. But if it had been treated better then, with his rehab and stuff like that, he wouldn't have got into the scenario that he did, and his knee get into the position that it did, really. That's how I feel about it, and that's how I look back, and that's really what I'm taking from the whole scenario. And it's not about putting names to different people and all that sort of stuff. That's not what it's about, really. It's people messing with people's career, really, and it shouldn't have happened.
Absolutely. And, you've had to come through an awful lot since. You said you want to tell your story because you want to be a help to someone. So there might be youngsters today who have career-ending injuries. Just tell us, obviously it was really difficult to deal with when you knew your career was over. You did manage to play on for a little bit, but can you remember the day when you sort of touched on it then, when you thought, yeah, this is over, a top-level career is not going to happen, and possibly I'm going to have to walk away from the game?
It's always your worst nightmare as a football player. When I'm saying about I want to help young players, whether it's girls, boys, whatever, parents and stuff, I think that's got to be more there for them. I think especially for the kids of today, I've got dreams and aspirations that the education is important, that the insurance, your physical standards, your mental standards, it's got to be more. Johnny, to be honest with you, when I went through all this here, I got absolutely no help whatsoever. Am I a bitter man? No. But for 30 years I've been a proud man and I haven't said anything. But I think for my mental health and for me to move forward, I think it's important for me to get it out. I'm not here to throw people under the bus. It's not my style. It's not the way I am. But it's affected my life in such a hard way that I feel lucky that I'm still here. But I think when the likes of the PFA, I've spoke to them, and I'm not having a serious dig, but I am as well. Basically, since my injuries, when I was at Wolverhampton, then I went to Gillingham, and then I snapped my patella tendon. The help I've received has been basically nothing. And now we're 30 years later, and there's been a few times in the last few years where I've hit new lows, and obviously lows that I never even expected you could get so low. And then I feel the worst thing in life, Johnny, is to ask for help. And nobody should be scared, and I think that's a big problem as well. I think you have to talk.
Men find that difficult.
Yeah, but I haven't talked, Johnny. I haven't talked for 30 years. And now, by talking, just by you guys inviting me, you, Johnny, Muchie, Robbie, it helps me a lot. It really does. Like you'll never know. And for the supporters to hear the other side of what actually goes on in the mind and in the game as well. But for me, I think the PFA could be there to help, but even more. I think that it's changed now. I think it's a lot better. But I think when you're so desperate for just that little bit of help, whether it's a chat or whatever situation you're going through, I think it's I've struggled with it for 30 years, and I'm hoping one day that they'll turn up for me a little bit, to be honest with you.
I mean, it's great to hear you speaking so openly now as well. And I think, you're certainly a victim of the time and the period, and men are much more willing to talk. I think back to another of your teammates, Robbie and Muchie, when Mickey Holmes, he had that terrible injury in the Sherpa Van Trophy final, and that was the end of his Wolves career, and he never really recovered, and he still talks about that, doesn't he?
Yeah, that was a tough time for Holmes. That was completely dealt with the wrong way. You get injured at Wembley, won the game at Wembley, Sherpa Van, and he finds out from the press man the following week, and he was stretchered off that day, a horrific ankle injury, and he finds out from the press boy, I think about a week later, that he's been released from the club. That was a nightmare scenario for Holmes.
Mick was a cracking lad, and he was a good servant for the club. But when we actually played in that final, as you touched on, Robbie, he got really badly injured, and he's struggling to actually walk, right? And they were just not giving him any help whatsoever. And I was looking at it and thinking, this is a disgrace. And it was just like people who were in charge at the time. Graham Turner was a cracking manager, don't get me wrong, but certain things weren't that good. I remember when Paul Jones, the keeper, he was having a drug test at Notts County, and he was trying to give his urine sample, right, and he couldn't do it. So after about an hour, the gaff went, right, just leave him, we're going, and just drove home. And I thought, really? And unfortunately, that's the way it was. And sadly, Neil, what you've experienced is not nice to hear. However, there's lots of players that have gone through exactly the same thing as you, in the respect that dealing with injury is so difficult, right? But not only that, even if you've had a great career, when you finish playing football, you say, well, what do I do now? Because you've got all the camaraderie you had and all the people that you work with, whether it was your playing staff or whether it was staff that you used to say, could you sort these tickets out for us, or could you do this please, or book that hotel for us. You got everything done for you. So all of a sudden, that just goes. And when it goes completely, it's very, very difficult. However, when your career goes the way it did because of your injuries, and you don't feel as if you've offered enough as a player for your career, that's tough to deal with. And I understand exactly where you're coming from.
We saw yesterday as well how much affection there is for you from your old teammates, and particularly Don Goodman, who had some horrific head injury during his time at Wolves, and you shared that those moments with him as well, and Don was delighted to see you as well. I imagine it's only when you've been through that you can understand. I don't think we can ever understand the effects of a horrific injuries that you've experienced, and Don to some degree. I
think as well, when you have these injuries, it's not just yourself, it's the people around you. I think it's whether it's your girlfriend or wives or family and stuff like that there, it does really affect you, because you put this defence mechanism up around you and it pushes people away. If you don't get the right help and stuff like that there. I remember even when I went to Gillingham after Wolves, I didn't get to say goodbye to the Wolves fans, to the players. I was kind of just pushed out the door on transfer deadline day, and that was hard. Wolves had accepted a bid from Gillingham and stuff, so I thought Tony Pulis, okay, my old manager. And then I got in the car, just basically 5 minutes to go on the transfer deadline day, pushed out the door, got in my car, drove down to Gillingham in tears, not really knowing what the future held, to be honest, for me. I didn't speak to anybody before I made the move. I felt like I had to make a move because my knee wasn't good, and I thought maybe this is giving me an extra year, because I think it was a year left on my contract at the time. So I went to Gillingham. It was much of the same. It was stop-start, some good games, getting in the squad, but I had to rehabilitate my knee, and then I got back playing again, and again some good games, and then there's a period where my knee was really bad. It was we played a reserve game in Cambridge, and it was constant pain in my knee, and I said to the manager, I said, look, I'm struggling here, but I'll play. So I played 90 minutes, just got through the game, and then the next week we played Brentford at home. Again, the knee didn't feel too great, and it was after 30 minutes. I felt a massive crash in the side of me, and I turned around, there was nobody there. I thought, okay. And then I just looked down, and obviously my kneecap had snapped in half. My patella tendon kneecap was up at the top of my leg, and I just looked at it and thought, okay, that's me done. The first thing I said was, I'm finished. I'm finished.
How old were you then?
I was 28, mate.
28, yeah.
And then the mental thing started after that again. It was like when I look at a little bit of like duty of care and stuff like that, I said there was no doctor at the game, the Gillingham game. I'm lying there with a snap patella tendon on the pitch. There's no doctor. They've got to get a metal boarding onto the pitch. Tony Poulos has got to come out of the main stand with 4 other guys to carry me off the pitch. So they carried me into the dressing room. My knees, well, as you can probably understand, my knee is like a balloon. And I'm sat there. There's no doctor. There's nothing happening. I've got to wait for the ambulance. And then somebody told me that the actual ambulance took me to the wrong hospital. And then I was put in the hospital. I was in the corridor with my Gillingham kit on, just lying there in tears, obviously with my knee like a balloon. And then obviously went in, seen a specialist eventually, and he said, do you want the good news or the bad news? And I was like, flipping hell, good news. I was like, good news. I was like, good news. I said, I know I'm Irish, mate, but if you can pull some good news out of this, mate, I'll tell you what, you're an absolute legend.
Gillingham won the game 2-1.
So I'm not sure if that says about the quality of player Gillingham at the time. I could play with one leg or something, but so I said to him, like I said, all right, give me the good news, mate. Go on, far away. And he says, Neil, you'll play again. And I said, that's enough for me, man. I said, what's the bad news? And I don't know how long it's going to take. It's going to take a long time. And from that day forward, Johnny, I was like, I'm going to play again. So off of my crutches, had the operation, big leg plaster for 3 months. And then I just got into, like, my mentality was I was just walking around Gillingham streets in my crutches, blood in my hands, tears, sweat. And I wouldn't give up, mate. I couldn't do it. But then, unfortunately, after my rehab and stuff, I went to Norway for some fluid treatment, just to help me get back a little bit quicker and stuff like that there. And I paid for some of my own specialist treatment away from the club. And then Peter Taylor took over, and he pulled me in after I came back from Norway. And this is tough. He just said to me that, we're going to let you go. I said, oh, okay, fair enough. He says, yeah, you've come back a couple of pounds overweight. I said, what? So that's the excuse? I said, I'm still injured. You have a duty of care, but I appreciate that you're helping me out. And then from that day, Johnny, basically my contract was cancelled. Had a roll-on contract, cancelled. Went back home, sat in my living room, still with half a knee, not even a knee. No help from anybody, and my contract was finished. The next day, to rub salt in the wounds, the next day they came and took my car away, club car. And that was it. Neil, get on your own devices, mate.
To then manage things in terms of your own future going forward mentally, what did you do? And obviously, you've had a life away in Norway, and I'd like you to explain, what life has been like for you post-career. But that's something that I think at least today's footballers have. They have that duty of care that was just non-existent back 30 years ago. Yeah,
I totally agree, Johnny. I think it's gone on leaps and bounds, to be honest with you. I think it's great. It doesn't make me any happier when I see this for the kids of today. I think it's so important, and I think it's so important that they talk. I think us men, we don't talk too much, to be honest with you. But moving on to the thing, obviously moved to Norway at the time. I went there when I was 16 for 3 months to play football for a Norwegian club. Harry Redknapp sent me when I was at Bournemouth. So I went over there, and you should have seen me, Robbie. Much you made, you'd laugh your heads off. Going into an office with Harry, and Harry's gone, Neil, I want you to go away in the summer and play a few months of football. I'm like, no problem, boss. And come back fit, ready to get into the first team squad. And I'm like, first team squad? I'm only 17. I'm like, flipping. That was all the motivation I need to hear, right? He says, right, I'm going to send you to Norway. I was like, aye, right.
Where's that?
I was like, where the fuck's Norway? So anyway, so me being me, I'm like, yeah, I'll go there. 3 months, bit of football, bring it on, mate. Different culture. Yeah, I'm there. But to be fair, he could send me to the moon, mate, and I still would have gone there and played football. So next thing you know, I've gone home, right? I've got the old globe out, the globe map. I'm sat there trying to look for Norway. I'm looking Spain, Magaluf. I'm thinking, is he sending me to a warm? And then I'm going higher and higher, mate. And I'm thinking, fuck me, I'm near the North Pole here. I'm like, what's going on here? Went to Norway. It was 25 degrees all summer. Played my football, and then that was my first taste of Norway. Met some great people, some of my closest friends and stuff like that there. So moving forward to when I had the Gillingham thing, to put a positive on the story as well, is that when I went to Norway, I've got 2 beautiful boys. They're my heart and soul. They're my life. They've given me joy in ways that I've never thought. and they've been my little rocks. To be honest, I love being a dad. I don't think my wife loved me being a husband, to be honest with you. But again, that was the mental health part going in. I couldn't be that husband that probably she wanted at the time, because I'd finished my career and I was finding it very hard to adjust from playing football to actually stopping and then starting a new career. I had no education behind me. I had a lot of thoughts on what to do, but these thoughts kept getting cancelled out all the time because of my mindset. But at the end of the day, it's like all the money in the world couldn't buy my kids. I've got James and Christopher. They're two fantastic boys. They're well behaved. They're brought up well, not like their dad. But they've been a real rock for me. I've got a couple of friends in Norway that have been there when I've been really struggling. And obviously I've just got my brother left back in Northern Ireland with his family, and he's been a rock as well. But my two boys, they've been the reason, that the responsibility to stay in Norway for the 24 years that I've done. But it's decision time coming up now, because they're both grown up. They're both moved away from home, and I feel like I want to give something back. It's time. I want to come back to England, maybe back to Northern Ireland, help these kids, work in football. I love the game. I've had all these injuries. People would probably want to see the end of football after what I've gone through, but I love the game even more. It's like I love analysing the game. It's like every small moment of a game where there's a tackle, it's a pass, it's a header, it's a shot on goal, it's a corner, it's a technical situation. I just love the game. I can't get enough of it. So I'm hoping that I can get back into the game. I've got to push myself a little bit as well. Like I said earlier, hopefully help whether it's one or two people on all aspects of what happens, the ups and downs.
Well, we're going to break this podcast up into two parts because it's been fantastic to hear you speak so openly. But just to explain to supporters, what area of Norway did you move to?
I've moved to a place called Moss, which is 45 minutes from Oslo. So if any supporters want a little holiday or a little break for a weekend, then just get in contact and I'll look after them. Don't you worry about that.
So it was certainly...
Thanks, Neil. Yeah.
Except for Robbie Dennison. Muchie, you can come, mate, because you're an absolute legend. Johnny, you're always welcome, mate.
Once you bring us a guitar.
But I think if I invited Robbie, he'd stay for about 3 months. So I think
it was a big step, though, and I guess it was sort of moving on to a new life, settling down in Norway, raising a family, and speaking a bit of Norwegian. Is that right?
Oh, Johnny, mate, now you're hitting the nail on the head, mate. Honestly, you should have heard the state of me when I first went to Norway. I tried to start speaking the language with an Irish accent in Norwegian. Honestly, I didn't sound right. So I went to school for a couple of days and they were like saying, oh, this is how you say hello and stuff. And I was like, what is going on here? So I said to my missus at the time, I said to my friends, right, guys, because they all speak English in Norway. So I'm saying, right, guys, you have to speak Norwegian to me so I can learn this language. If I'm going to live here, I need to speak it. Although everybody spoke English. So that started, and then it took me about 2.5 years to learn the language fluent, and that was fantastic. Obviously, I said a few words to Robbie when we were out having a curry on Saturday night, and Robbie had a couple of pints, so he sounded quite Norwegian.
That's what I was going to say. 12 o'clock last night. Me and Mochi were talking Norwegian, man.
I tell you what, mate. 12 o'clock last night, and Mochi was singing some songs, and he was a Norwegian superstar last night. I tell you, flip's sake.
The second part of this podcast, we're going to talk about what you want to do next and what life will hold for you next. But just to round that up, obviously you went to Norway, you've got two beautiful children, as you've talked about, but the mental health issues were obviously a constant struggle, were they? And that battle and thinking of what might have been, has that never left you?
No, it never leaves you. It's a battle every day. It's a battle for me to get up every day, if I'm being honest with you. I think my kids, this is the first time my kids are going to probably hear me speaking really openly about it, but I've always been quite open with them, but there's I don't want them to worry. But I think from that time where I had to leave, where I left the Wolves, when I got that injury, that first injury, big injury, I think that's when the depression set in for me. And it's been a roller coaster financially, basically physically, mentally. It's hard. It's been hard. You feel like you're alone. You feel like no matter what good happens in your life, it doesn't last very long. You're in a bubble. I didn't speak. I think I spoke to somebody for a little while, but then I stopped, which was not smart of myself to do. I think it's so important. You've got to speak to people. I've got more out of these last 3 days. I've now been in England for 3 weeks. I don't want to go back to Norway because it's cold. It's freezing. I don't want to sit in a house on my own and be alone. So I've gone to Liverpool for a few days, went back to Northern Ireland. I'd done my first podcast in Northern Ireland, which I think I was nervous. When you're depressed, you always try and find excuses why not to do it. But my son said to me, he said, Dad, come on, it's time. And when I've got my son doing that, I'm thinking, okay, come on, man. You've got to take a step forward here. And then when I was there, I was meant to go back to Norway again. I think it was on the 4th and stuff. But then I thought, you know what? I want to go to Wolves. I've been talking about it for ages. My son again, he said, Dad, it's your club. He said, get back there, meet your old friends and stuff like that there, and do it. I think the worst thing about it, Johnny, is that you feel alone. I'm not here for a sob story. I'm not here for pity. It's not what I'm made of. I left home when I was 15. But it's got to the stage now where I feel like I'm stepping a little bit out of my comfort zone, which I think is helping a little bit. And I just want to be better, mate. I look forward to today. I can't look more forward than that. And then hopefully it brings a brighter day tomorrow, and then the day after, and I just want to get well, and hopefully I'll get the help and support that I can start building a new career and give something back, and then get going.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that with us. We're going to talk in a bit more depth as we carry on, but it's great to hear Neil's story there, and it takes a lot of guts and a lot of effort to talk about that when you've been in such a dark place, Robbie. And I'm sure, as someone who's close to Neil, you'll appreciate that.
The mental health side of things in football is tough. I'd be lying to say that I didn't go through issues whenever I came out of the game, and I played a lot of games. I wasn't injured, so the scenario that Neil's had when he's been injured and not being able to play the amount of games that his talent actually deserved, because he was a talented lad. I'm not just saying because he's sitting here now. He was a proper player. But so the mental health side of things within the game has always been a massive thing and needs to be talked about more. We grew up, and Muchie grew up in the time when we didn't talk about anything like that. You know what I mean? You just try to deal with your own scenarios and move on. But whenever you stop playing, and all of a sudden, because it just stops like that, doesn't it? One day you're going in training, the next day you're not, right? So the mental health with that and trying to get your life in gear and what you're going to do next and all that scenario is the toughest thing ever. And I think any player coming out of the game does have issues for periods of time whenever they do that.
I didn't know anybody in the changing room that I thought had a problem. I thought everyone was fine.
Yeah.
And all we did, we trained, played football. Okay, the lads got fed up when they were injured. It was a nightmare when you were injured because you were separated from the pack, as we said, and it was one of them things. But I was trying to think hard when Neil was talking. Who did I actually physically see that I thought, oh, he's not right, him, you know what I mean? And you didn't. So that's how well players did it, because they did. And because we've heard lots of stories since we finished playing of fellow players, etc., who found it hard both with the mental health side and obviously forging a new life for themselves and career. I suppose it's difficult to make the right decisions all the time, isn't it? Right, because you're saying, shall I do that or shall I do that? It was a lot of isolation because I hadn't got a clue any lads was having any problems. I thought everything's just fine. You just turned up, played football, went home. Bit fed up if you're injured, and luckily, like you said, Robbie, we were fit most of our career, so that's a big help. These guys that get injured a lot, you never really thought that, did you? You thought, oh, they're just fine, they'll be back soon. That's why I used to call Derek Mountfield Doubtful Derek, right? Because you never knew if he was playing on the Saturday or not. You know what I mean? So that's how it rolled. Blimey heck.
But it was those were the times, Muchie. Those were the times. You didn't talk about those things. You went out, you played the game, and you could have been taking stick from the crowd and all that scenario, and you just bottled it up, and then you moved on and went into training the following day and got on with things.
Did you get stick from the crowd or me?
Well, I got stick once in my 10 years.
You did,
unfortunately, it lasted for 2.5 years, didn't it?
Yeah. Hey, you got through it though, lad.
You know what? I will tell you a story now, and you probably don't know this really. Whenever Graham Turner's time, right? We were on a right run. I think we were playing, and we'd just beaten Leicester on the Tuesday night. And there was rumblings in the crowd. You know when there's rumblings in the crowd, whenever you're on the ball and all that sort of stuff, I was getting it, right?
Yeah.
But at that time, we just had the first kid, Paul. I was getting no sleep, right? He'd colic, right? So he's screaming the nights out, right? So for 2 hours he's sleeping, 2 hours screaming, 2 hours sleeping, 2 hours. So this is going on for about 4 or 5 weeks. I'm absolutely shattered, and Denise is the same at home, right?
Yeah.
So going in training, right? Doing all I had to do, playing the games. After the Leicester game, I got hammered. We won the game, but I got hammered a little bit, right? So you know what's happening. And then the press phone you up the next day. How's things, blah, blah, blah. How'd you feel about last night? And then in the press the following time. And I didn't even tell the missus what was going on. She was at home, right?
Yeah.
And then the press pick up on it. Dennison's going to beat the Boo Boys and all that sort of stuff, right? So I've trained, playing Barnsley on the Saturday. I'm in the team to play Barnsley. And a mate of mine, Mick Forrester, who's passed away now, he's picking me up for the game. Denise isn't going to the game. So he's picking me up. Driving across, I said to him, I'm not playing today. Right, I don't know if you remember this much. I didn't even speak to anybody or tell anybody what was going on. I said, I'm not playing today. He says, what's the matter? I said, well, this is happening at home, blah, blah, blah. Absolutely, my mind's absolutely knackered with everything, shattered. It's all of a muddle. Like I can't focus on playing. And he goes, no. He was old school. No, you have to play. So I've gone into the changing rooms, walked straight to see the gaffer in his office and said, you better leave me out. This is what's happening at home, right? And he left me out. So we've gone to the pub, as you did then, right?
So you went straight to the pub.
Walked into the pub with Mick, right? And this big lad comes across to me, and he goes, what's wrong with you? And I said, listen, I've made up a lame excuse, all this blah, 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 things aren't, but I forget what I even said to him. And he says to me, well, I booed you Tuesday night, but I still want you in the team today, right? And I've gone, my head is absolutely mullered then, right? My head is absolutely mullered, and I've gone, what the fuck's going on? But they played the game, right? And I don't know if you remember, Johnny, 4-0 down at half-time at home to Barnsley. Right, do you remember that?
Yeah. Paul Cliff scored a spectacular own goal in front of the South Bank. Never seen anything like it.
Turned to see who's coming in behind him, right, and set him on the knee and caught it in the net, right?
It's the worst own goal ever.
At half time, they're singing my name on the terracing, right, and I'm going, fucking hell, this is doing my head in, absolutely doing my head in. Now, the whole crux of the story for me really is, if we had beat Barnsley 5-0 that day, I could have been up the road. That could have been the end of me because of the decision I made. Yes. Now, do I look back on and think it was the right decision for me personally and on a mental state? I think it was personally because I needed to be taken out of it, and the gaffer wasn't good. The gaffer never really changed the team much, did he? No. He kept playing, right? Never really changed the team. So we ended up losing the game 5-0, and everybody wants me back in the team again, all the fans and everybody, right? And I've gone, right, I'm all right. So Monday, Tuesday, I've come in. The gaffer says to me Thursday, how are you feeling? And I says, yeah, I'm fine now. And he goes, right, so we played Bristol City away. We drew 1 each. I scored a free kick and I was off and running again. But I needed to have that space, and I took it on my own decision to do that because no one else was going to make that decision for me. But as I said, probably nobody in the changing rooms knew about that.
No one knew at the time. At the time, they didn't know. But obviously, you've told me that story about 5 times. Is there any dementia kicking in? Is there any dementia kicking in or what?
But it's all about the mental scenario we've all been touched with it in games for certain standards, like, and obviously the fact that Neil's gone through what he's gone through is a tough one. Like.
But it's like there's a lot of young lads who've got real got ability, haven't they? And when they get knockbacks where a manager or a coach says you're not good enough, they can't come back from it because they think that's the career finished. Yeah. But it isn't really, and people do come back from it. You know, it's like anything, you have to deal with these situations, if you know what I'm saying. But at the same time, it's sort of, you had to make that decision what you did, and if we'd have won 5-0 that day, you'd have still been playing for Wolves. Don't worry about that. Well, you know what I mean?
I wouldn't have been in the following week, probably. You know what I mean?
Listen, thanks so much for your insights. We're going to leave it there for this episode of Muchie and Deno, but it's been fascinating to hear from Neil, Robbie and Andy, and I think it's something that supporters don't always consider, what is going through the heads of players, whether they're in the team or, in Neil's case, unfortunately, out of the team. But there's absolutely so much to talk about on this front. Thanks so much for listening to Muchie and Deno.